when, like in Toronto, I read about this recently. In Toronto, in like 88, 89 or whatever, real estate had shot up, okay? And then it had gone up. This is Vancouver. This is Toronto's other city. It took like 13 years for it to reach that point, for it to reach the value it was in 80, 89 or whatever, something like that, So it's like, you might think, okay, 13 years went by, now you're basically broken even, right? But you've also been paying for a more expensive house for that whole period. You know what I mean? It's like, the price was $500,000, it wasn't $500,000, but I'm just saying, if it's $500,000, goes down, goes back up to $500,000 13 years later, long term, you haven't lost anything, but it's like, maybe it would have been better to wait a bit. I'm not asking to I'm not suggesting that you time it to try to be perfect, because it's just time it when it really, really makes sense. When you look at the numbers and you're like, well, that's renting, that's buying, interest rates are at normal rates, I'm willing to pay a little bit more to own for those other luxuries, but we're not at normal rates, This is, really what I'd like to encourage you guys to do, more than anything else, because this is just like the beginning. There's so much more. There's so much more in this whole, I didn't talk about employment, or I didn't really talk about introduction of the HST or how that'll affect it, or the Olympics. I mentioned that briefly. But it's there's a lot to this whole situation, So it's just if you understand this, it can only help you, If you look at the situation and you really want to do it as an investment or a business type of reason, then you just look at the numbers and you'd be like, well, yeah, that's a bad idea. Because people can still make a good investment in real estate. But, I don't know. Anything else? Yep.
So how would you know whether, let's say, the price starts to come down? How would you know that it's reached a reasonable level?
Okay, well this is a problem that people in the States are facing. Like you guys know, in a lot of these cities, like Phoenix, Las Vegas, all of California practically, property values have gone down a lot, right? And a lot of people are asking themselves that exact question. And it's once it reaches a certain point, the point that you're really happy with, then don't try to make it perfect, Don't worry about it making the perfect buy, because there's a really good chance that you're going to be off, maybe a little too early, a little too late, whatever, And one person said it to me, it's like trying to catch a falling knife. See it's coming, you're like, now, ow, cut myself. You know what I mean? So it's really hard, especially when there's so much other stuff that can influence it, completely out of your control. Government, Bank of Canada, CMHC, who knows, maybe there'll be a cap introduced. Like they took it away in 2003, maybe it'll come back. The 40-year mortgage was available, and now it isn't, So you don't try to make it perfect, just try to make it smart. Does that answer your question, Kevin?
Yeah. I think what you can do as well is look at the affordability index.
Right.
So on average, how much people pay of their income, because that gives you a sense for whether overall people are stretched or not. And the other thing is what you alluded earlier, which is compared to rent.
Yeah.
If you think an investor who invests in the property to rent it would have, let's say, a 4% cap rate, expect a 4% return on that investment, it means you take whatever amount of rent you need to pay every year and divide it by 4%. And that gives you kind of a comparative value of the property.
Yeah.
You can see how that compares to the value you have to pay on the market.
Yeah.
Right? So now it gives you a way to trade or to evaluate, assess the comparison between renting and buying.
Yeah, it's not super complicated. Most of it's just a little bit of multiplication or division and addition and subtraction kind of stuff. 12 months divided by 12, there you go, month, that's how much you pay, blah, blah, blah. But when you crunch those numbers and it does make sense, as far as investing goes, I don't think it's going to be a very good idea for a long time. But personally, you're going to end up pricing asking yourself, how much is that extra bit worth? How much is that control over your property? How much, all those sorts of things. How much is it worth to you to own? You're going to add that, it's not exactly dollars, because you're gonna be in a situation where you're probably married and the wife won't care. You'll be like, I want to own now, and you can give her all the numbers you want, but if she really wants to own bad enough, start a family, all that kind of stuff, you're gonna fight a losing battle. But yeah, if you can convince her, or him, I should say, very emotional, this guy. Okay. All right. Anything else?
What about rental income? Have you factored that in? Like subsidiary?
You gotta factor everything in. Like, it's also opportunity cost. You know, if you're gonna put a down payment of $100,000, you gotta say, well, what could that do somewhere else? You know, like rental income. Also, the taxes you're gonna pay on this income. You know, although you can probably write off. I don't know. That's all the accounting. Yeah, you can. That's complicated stuff. But like a lot of people. Okay, I'll tell you one thing that's kind of interesting. A lot of people own rental properties in Vancouver, right? They bought a condo and they're renting it out. Well, I heard one interesting report. The CRA contacted a property manager here, and they're like, okay, we're going to ask you to not pay the entire amount directly to the person that you're managing the property from. You got to hold on to that part until the end of the year. Hold on to whatever like that they would have to pay in taxes. But if it's a loss for a lot of people, they'll be getting it all back, and they won't have to pay any income taxes on that property, right? But people are in a situation where if they're charging $2,000 for a month for rent, they're only taking back like maybe $1,300, $1,400 immediately, and the property manager is managing it just in case. The CRA is catching all these people trying to they're trying to take advantage of it or whatever.
See, I was referring more to a mortgage helper where you can put the whole 100% down towards your mortgage, and then what you can do is amortize that amount over 25 years, lock in that rate. Like you're talking about 5-year terms.
Yeah.
You can actually do a 25-year lock-in mortgage.
But you're paying more.
You're paying a little bit more, but as far as renting, where you're giving someone else that $1,500 a month with your mortgage helper, you're actually benefiting, even though your property is fluctuating, but you still need a place to live at the end of the day.
Well, I'll tell you what. You can go look at MLS. I encourage you all to join the Finance Club. We actually have a forum where you can post anything you want, obviously, and you can give an exact example, and we can dissect it and maybe be like, well, in that case, it doesn't quite work out, or it does work out. It could be a perfect business opportunity. You might find something that's awesome, but it would be very difficult, I'd say. The numbers are going to have to look really, really sweet in this type of an environment, because rent hasn't been climbing like this in Vancouver, like property values. It'll be difficult. Anything else?
Are you sure the rent hasn't gone up like that? I thought it had.
Well,
I don't think it has.
it hasn't because, people are, actually, some people believe that rent's gone down, but there's a limit to how much you can increase each year. You can only increase I don't know the exact amount, it's like 3.4% maybe, or something like that. So you can only increase if you evict someone, and then you can increase. But then you're sitting in a situation where no one's in that place. You got an empty suite is making you nothing, right? So if you're going to try to charge $200 more than you were before, well, you gotta factor in how long it's going to take with vacancy, all that sort of stuff, and crappy renters. Everybody's heard of those guys?
Well, plus you just have to charge what the market's paying, right?
Exactly, and that's vacancy rate has actually only gone up recently. It's gone up quite a bit. Maybe you guys have noticed looking for maybe something. But yeah. Anything else?
Yeah, I'm just wondering, do you know anything about the price of, say, downtown Vancouver or Westside Vancouver? Like the square footage cost, if it's extremely high compared to other comparable cities in North America?
For rent?
No, for ownership costs. Like for example, comparing Cole
It's
Harbour
ridiculous.
versus
We're the most expensive city in Canada. Because you don't just compare the value of the property to the value of the property in another city. You gotta compare incomes. And we're actually, I had this slide in the here. It's a survey that these guys release every quarter or every year. It's called Demographia Survey. And basically what it does is it takes cities from around the world, not every country, maybe 7 or 8 countries, and then takes property value divided by income. And you get whatever the amount is, and then it just compares them to all these different cities. They decide if a city's affordable,